Intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Tumesoma, tumemaliza, hatujapata kazi. So our dream is get
here
rich.
We go.
By any means necessary.
By any means necessary.
It's amazing how long such an ethos can last. I mean, the complaints we have is that people go to university, not just college, university, can't get jobs. Meaning, we still think that a university education should lead to a job.
And I think we're trying to change that leaning, actually. We've heard the president himself come out and say, let's look at not just looking for employment per se, but actually going out there, creating businesses and creating employment as well. Perhaps you could be an employer, not just an employee.
You know, that whole Ministry of Youth was supposed to look into such things. That's what they were supposed to do. And that is why, when you looked at the budget items, that particular ministry got a huge chunk of money. But that's a debate for another day, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
We've got Andrew on the line, and Andrew has some views on this. Andrew, good morning.
Morning.
Yes, where are you calling from, Andrew?
I'm calling from Langata.
So, Andrew, what do you think? What is the Kenyan dream?
I want to agree with BT Muga that our dream is to get rich quickly, because back in the days we could we should go to school and get education. But now, as you see, our dream is to get rich quick, because that's what I think.
So he agrees.
Just reinforcing.
Thank you very much. He agrees with you, CT, that, the dream is get rich quick.
That's a man who understands his country and understands the Kenyan dream. Thank you.
And it's not just him alone. Let's see also somebody. Good morning, hello.
Good morning, Spice FM.
Yes, Spice FM, good morning. This is the Situation Room. Who are we talking to?
This is Okoh from Mombasa.
Okoh,
At the coast.
what do you think is a Kenyan dream?
The Kenyan dream actually is opaque to me as a Kenyan youth, because, look, I tend to concur with somebody by the name Abdul Kalam, who says that if there are three people who should change the society, it's the teacher, the parent, or rather the father and the mother. Teacher, father, and mother. But you see, these people are not playing the role. That leads to the question: is social media social enough? Because what we see is people just displaying what's in reality not existing. You see.
Right.
So, my thought is that money should be viewed as a certificate of accomplishment, so that you get money at the end of accomplishing some task, which is not the case in Kenya.
Okay.
This is why we are so much moving from, or rather we are crying over a lot of things. Things like corruption should not exist in a country that is so advanced in technology and knowledge like Kenya.
Thank you very much for your contribution this morning. 87.9 in Mombasa. Good morning. This is Spice FM. Hello.
I'm fine. I'm very fine, in fact.
Yes,
My name is Bizu.
Sorry, your name is?
Bizu. Basil Bizu.
Basil Bizu. Where are you calling from, Basil?
I'm calling from Meru. I'm streaming live.
All right. What's your dream as a Kenyan?
For me, my dream is to be a successful YouTuber, social media influencer, etc. Let me tell you something.
Right.
In Kenya now, you'll see a radio presenter like yourself being paid like 1.8 million just to appear on radio from 1 to 10 a.m. And then you'll see another. Listen, then you'll see a doctor who got an A, went there to school for 6 years on the road.
Yes.
You see, being paid minute money and is working day in, day out, being called to do wherever. Then a person like yourself, you see the difference. So what is the youth? 1.8 million. Then what is the use? What is the use of getting an A to stay on the road, to be overworked, to be done? Nobody cares about you as the governors, what they say in the media. You see,
Yes.
you see all those commercials on TV.
Thank you very much, Bizu. So, Bizu,
Yeah,
you say you're an aspiring YouTuber.
Yes, by the way, I'm an aspiring YouTuber, and by the way,
Therefore,
and
you're seeing
Bizu,
you're seeing YouTube as your route to success.
yes, because I've seen many people. I've done my own research, and I've seen it's better to be a YouTuber in Kenya than even a doctor or whatever. It's stress to be a doctor, it's stress to be whatever. This professional, this politician will take you, will use you like they'll use you for nothing. You see, they don't care. As in, you don't matter to them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Bizu. Bizu,
He makes a
from
point. He's on to something. He might have articulated it slightly, accusing us. I don't know. Are you on 1.8, Eric? Maybe I missed something there.
I thought I had 1.8 billion.
I said 1.8 million, and I thought maybe I didn't negotiate my contract too well. If that's what
I
people
looked
are
at
being
you
paid.
and I thought, well, no wonder.
But he's on to something. What he's saying is that, traditional forms of employment and what we aspired to previously, so a doctor and so on, which we're still aspiring to or people are still working towards, they're not getting paid anywhere near as much as people who are sort of trending on social media and so on. And there are new forms of emerging employment with technology and so on. You have social media influencers paid hundreds of thousands by products and services to sit in front of their computers and basically just showcase their lives. I went to I went here, I went there, and so on, right? So he's on to something, definitely. And good luck to him with his aspirations to be a YouTuber. And he did say a social media influencer. So the terrain is changing as well. Maybe traditional jobs and traditional professions, they're shifting, they're evolving. And I think that's what he was on to, except he's coming across a little bit sort of frustrated at the fact that more money is being paid in certain industries.
He sounds dejected, as our producer Brian
Well,
is telling
let's keep him motivated. Keep at it, Basil. Bizu. What was his name?
Bizo.
Bizo.
Yeah.
Bizo from Meru. He was streaming live, of course. But yeah, good luck with that.
You brought something, and before you come in, City, you brought something, the two of you, Njeri and City, and actually you too as well, Ndu. And he said, people are going into other things, into other areas and seeking ways of making money. At the end of the day, it's about, getting yourself from point A to point B. You want to have a good lifestyle. You want to live well. You want to be able to afford a good life. And Njeri brought in the issue of let's look at our moral values as a society, where we're getting at. But what's wrong with people like Bizu, seeking one direction towards getting better?
If you listen to this conversation, he is where he is because of other factors that have influenced his life and have shaped it to the point where he is.
He probably studied medicine.
Yes, and listen to the frustration with politicians, frustrations with formal employment. This is a person who is not just a social commentator, but he has participated in things that have left him with frustration. So he's figured, look, there's an avenue that is open to me here. I'm going to pursue it. These other ones don't seem to be working. They may work for other people, but it's definitely not working for me. But that is not a single voice. That is a very representative voice of very many people of his generation. We were promised this, we were told this, and the promises have come out empty.
I think also dreams, when you look at dreams, they're transitionary in their nature, because however I may have started dreaming when I was younger is not the same way that I dream today. What the things that I wanted or the things that I wanted to become probably do remain the same. However, the route that I take to get them would be different. And I think we look at, again, making reference to what, the Western dream may be. You work hard and you get to the place where you can say, I am now living my dream. But in cases now, like just from what Bizo has said, I want to be a social media because at the end of the day, it is to be successful. Whatever it takes for me to get to that place where I'm successful, which is my dream, then if these are the things that I need to do, then I'm going to go ahead and do them. I think also the dreams that we have now are influenced by the things that we see out there. You've been told of, for example, social media influencers who make who have followers in the hundreds of millions who are making money. So look, if I can do that, then that is where I aspire to be, because these other traditional things that have been touted to be able to help me get to where I'm going are not working here where I am.
But what is informing our dreams is also very important. Don't undermine the power of media and its ability to shape what you want and your value system. I remember as a teenager, late teen, sort of in 18, 19, I was very influenced by American rap music, and I used to sag my jeans, and I thought I was a gangster, and I wanted to live in Compton. You know, Compton as having watched Don't Be a Menace to Society, and you know, it was very appealing. And this, we're talking about being a rogue, you know, a gangster, criminal in essence, but it seemed very appealing. So what is informing our aspirations is also very important. And when you look at things like the Kardashians, you start to see, and there's a big section of society even within Kenya that start to live this dream, and they form the basis of things like the Slay Queen, for instance. But there was a survey done. I want to go back to something quite important. There was a survey done in Kenya as to what is important, what is most important to Kenyans. I don't have the details and the breakdown of the demographics, but what came out as the most important thing and value was family. Which could be that they were answering that because it's very hard with surveys, and us in Kenya, we give answers that we want or we think people want to hear sometimes, so we don't get to the core of whatever it is. I would beg to differ with the results of that survey. I think at the moment what is most important is money. And the reason things have shifted is with money becoming, it was always important, but even previously, even with the ethos of so many vijana mtapata kazi nzuri. Even with that, it was, you know, to lead on to money. But there was other spokes in the wheel. There was family. There was respect within the community. There was, you know, sort of commitment to working with other people. There was a lot of other things that came with money. Whereas now, the only thing people are aspiring to is money, to this extent they don't care how they acquire it. So they don't care if they're perceived to be greedy, to be ruthless, to be thieves, to be corrupt. That doesn't matter. So long as you have money, earning respect from your community and family only comes in one form, money. How you get there doesn't matter.
You mentioned the media. So yeah, we've seen it in the media as well. There is you quoted a couple of musicians who've done this. I can quote another one, 50 Cent. 50 Cent has said, in fact, he produced an album called Get Rich
or Die Trying.
Or Die Trying. He's an executive producer of a very popular TV series, The Power. And the sig tune for that.
Who, 50 Cent?
50 Cent is This Is a Rich Man's World. Yeah, legal or illegal, baby, I gotta make it.
Yeah,
it's about let's make money.
And I remember
it's about paper.
It coming out even in
no romance without finance.
Even from long ago.
That's really old school. Right. But do you remember with sort of Biggie and them showcasing all this money and gold and cash? You didn't have that in music in the 70s. If you remember, music in the 70s was sort of boogie on down, and that changed over time. And they started, first of all, glorifying crime, which is another story altogether. But also, you started to see them sort of showcasing gold teeth and me and my Lex and, you know, champagne on the hill, that sort of thing. And I was aspiring to that, to be honest. So I can only imagine now, with so much more exposure to so much more information and so many more lifestyles, what the youth must be aspiring to, what their dreams must be, and whether they're actually attainable.
This is Spice FM. Good morning. Hello.
Morning.
Yes, how are you, sir?
Fine.
What's your name and where are you calling us from?
My name is Roderick. I'm calling you from Embakasi.
Yes, Roderick. What's your dream? Is there a Kenyan dream?
Yeah, dream is great.
You've actually even changed it. Not even just making money. Kenyan dream is greed.
Latiff,
Right. Yes.
You're driving beside your Volkswagen, driving beside a big car.
Yeah.
A V8 or something.
Yes.
You'll want that car. And you'll do anything to get that car. You use all means.
Not me, but I get your point.
In life right now,
even
in life right now, the one who has the most money, hata kama ndo last born, is the one that makes the decisions.
This is true.
It's actually true that this is the person who has money becomes the first born.
There's a function at home,
yes,
and you're the first, and the small one is the one who has the money. Trust me, we respect money other than respecting values. Oh, okay. Unaletewa crest by force. So look here.
Thank you very much, Roderick. Have a good one. City, your dream has been modified. Our Kenyan dream is greed.
We commercialized our values. We gave the commercialization aspect of our value system a great deal of importance. And one can even trace the genesis of this thing, and one can even trace where it changed. There's a young gentleman from Mombasa who talked about him believing in certain foundations based on the influences being the family, being the teacher. I want to begin with the teacher. There was a time in this country when teachers, I speak as a former educator here.
Yes.
And I realized this thing is never former.
You're not former.
You never stop. That's what I've realized. You never stop.
You are an educator, City. In fact,
Yes.
let me just, you are an educator.
Yes.
You know, educationist.
Okay. Educationist. There was a time when one of the professions that was most sought after and respected was that of being a teacher. And teachers were highly respected. There were reasons for it.
Yeah.
And people aspired to be teachers. And teaching was akin to a calling. It wasn't just a job. Now, the net result of this was you had an entire generation of people who actually came up with values, had values, talked values, and even lived values. Then we had a time when our education system, this one in Kenya, I do not know what informed this twist, but people became educators when they couldn't get the courses they had applied for.
Right.
So what you were then given was education. So you then introduced a new cadre of individuals who were actually teaching and had no interest whatsoever in the profession. It was just a job. Now, again, give it a decade or so, and we started burning schools. Then we started burning labs. Then we started burning dormitories. And it has continued to escalate. I'm saying this. When you have someone teaching young minds and they're disinterested in what they do, that apathy is passed on. So you have an entire generation of people who, yes, they were taught, yes, but a certain value system was never transferred
down to the people.
No, it wasn't.
This is C.T. Muga. He's speaking from a position of authority, like he said. He is an educationist. He is also a researcher on very many matters. He has taught many people, young, and now he's even teaching people who are professionals. And he is saying that Kenyans have a dream, and their dream is to make money. What's your view on this? This is a Situation Room right here on Spice FM. Would like to hear what you think. We'll come back and pick some of your comments on Facebook, Spice FM KE, and also on Twitter, Spice FM KE, and we'll keep taking your calls.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
So what are people saying on Twitter on this, Ndu?
Well, I mean, if we look at Facebook first, for example, yes, the two comments from Mary Akinyi says, it is clearly an issue of money. Our dream is specifically money, and we're not going for anything else when that concerns what it is that we aspire to. Yeah, and that's what the majority of the comments are saying this morning. You know, it's money. Our dream is money. We are looking for money, and however we can get it is what we're looking towards. Now, it's interesting because I had a conversation with somebody previously, and they wanted a job in a particular organization. And I thought, okay, well, here you are, you make the application, and then I thought the conversation ended there. But this young man went on to say, you know, I want this job so that I can be able to get into a position where I would be at the place where I was making the decisions in terms of what money was spent on, basically in the procurement section, because they felt that this is where a lot of the money flow came in through, and then they would be able to manipulate how, you know, money would now get into their pocket because they knew that they could be in a position of influence. So then goes to really how we make this money then is where we now bring in the issues of, morals. I also do heavily agree that, you know, the things, just like Jerry was saying, that you see the kind of music and that is what you aspire to be. But at the end of the day, I also think that people's dreams also depend on the situation in which they are at a particular point in time. Because having money does command a huge aspect of respect. People look up to you, people want to be with you, people want to be you, you know. But at the same time, I also think that at stages that you are in your life, your dream escalates, you know, it becomes broader, becomes more detailed, and I don't know if that's the case across the board, but really that's what it seems to me, that it's changing. It's not static in nature, but it changes as you go along, and you know your experiences also make that change.
I think acquiring money and wealth acquisition is global, and I don't think it's you know, even with the ethos we had previously, it was to get a job and have money. I think what is an indicator of what our dreams are is what we then do with that money. Are we spending this money on experiences that develop us, in terms of whether it's holidays that, you know, you absorb a culture, whatever it is that tickles your fancy? Are we helping our families grow, our communities grow? Are we investing? So you'll find, for instance, in the States, very rich people will want to look like philanthropists because that's a value they aspire to. Here, we are using that money to show people, I have money. That is what is, and it's very important that others see it, because you'll find very old money, as they call it, is quite quiet. It's quite gentle. It doesn't speak loudly. Somebody could have an old car, very old car, a banger, but they have billions behind them and it's proper wealth. And then you'll find somebody driving a top of the range VX or whatever it is they're driving these days, and it's on loan and so on. But it's for that external validation. So it's not just the acquisition of money that is the indicator. It's what are we doing with that money? That reflects what our dream is. Because I think globally, given the world is generally on a capitalist trajectory, looking for money will be entrenched as one of the sort of aspirations in life, you know, building your life so that you can make money, so that you can live a certain way or live comfortably. But what we do with that money is what is interesting. In Kenya, it's used to show off. It's used as a statement, as opposed to, am I going to improve my...
It's not just for your. It improves your life, but also you also want affirmation.
The external validation has become crucial, and it goes back to the fact that we're having all these extrinsic factors as opposed to intrinsic factors. Well, we're greedy for that, yes, and also it's very much advertised to us, a certain lifestyle. We see people with big cars get all the girls. I mean, that's then playing
and get elected to parliament.
Absolutely, yeah. So. Interesting. What do you think, CT?
You know, Njeri, you mentioned something that actually we should probably talk about a little more. The influencers. What is it that influences this particular position that we now find ourselves in? Role models for a long time were parents, and parents more or less shaped one's aspirations. One wanted to aspire to what a parent was, or an uncle was,
a teacher, a lawyer,
that sort of thing. Then came in the information age. It came in installment before it was full blown in the 21st century. But that has now become the major influencer.
Absolutely.
No matter, it doesn't matter how much, again, you slice this one.
Yes, four sides.
And the so-called influencing by this particular influencer, it cuts across the so-called age brackets. Because one, when the power of example rests in a medium that isn't actually controlled by the parents or the school, then even the ethos that we're talking about cannot even be channeled or controlled by these same people. But what you'll find is that there is an international or a national ethos. Like young people of a certain age globally will think in a certain way and aspire towards certain things. People of a certain generation, like say mine, who are in their 60s, will also aspire towards certain things. Now, one of the things that, I'm going to give my generation as an example. One of the things that I hear my age mates saying is that they were lied to. They were told when they were young, they were the leaders of tomorrow.
Tomorrow came and went.
And the people whom they found as leaders and their children stayed on as leaders until they started dying off.
It's not yet tomorrow.
So, but of course, the lie wasn't that. The lie was that you will be given. Leadership is rarely given.
It's never handed to you.
No, it's not handed. Even when it's handed to you, it's at a serious cost.
Unless you're royalty.
Yes.
That's where the cost comes in. Even as royalty, look at the problem that Prince Andrew now finds himself in, because he was friendly to a gentleman called Epstein, whose reputation, as we all know, is not the sort of reputation you'd wish on anybody.
Yes.
Precisely.
Particularly a royal.
Particularly a royal. Yeah. Now, all I'm saying is this. If you're talking about aspirations, you cannot leave out value systems. So the question I would ask is, how is it that you go about influencing value systems so that they are not just productive in the general sense of the word, but that's so that those who are young can actually embody this or imbibe this, so that it can actually make them productive and more useful people to the society they live in?
In the old days, maybe the value was, and the validation that people would get, which segues into our next part, is, you're wealthy, and your wealth is counted in terms of the material that you have. You've got X number of cows, you've got X number of livestock, you've got X number of wives.
And children.
Which brings us to the wives bit. Njeri, you've got some thought on this. So let's go back into our days when I had so many heads of cattle, and I had so many children born of so many wives. That's what we're coming into after this break, and maybe you can introduce us into it.
Polygamy. It's an interesting one. We'll be talking about polygamy when we come back, and whether it fits into Christian-based values. Does the Bible approve of polygamy? We do legally, but de facto by law, it's legal. We've got bills that we've passed on this. We'll be discussing this from a social, political, legal, and religious perspective.
Yep. So that is Njeri, who's trying to introduce it in a very rather soft manner. Mm-hmm. As she brings it up. So the issue, and we're coming out of what are the dreams, or what is the Kenyan dream, versus how are we living before we actually change our dream.
Eric, let me chime in and say this. You see, why the issue of polygamy comes in, because you cannot have polygamy without women, okay?
Yes.
It's not possible. Now, we as Africans, or we in an African setting, the role of mothers in influencing the offspring is profound. It doesn't matter how far back you go into history, and even you speak about currently, that influence is profound. In fact, the question one would ask is, how much influence do fathers actually have? They do have influence. I'm not saying they don't. But the people who are direct influences of young people in a home setting are mothers. I'm certain there are people who disagree with me on this one, but that is my position.
This is the Situation Room right here on Spice FM. Our frequency is 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.6 in Malindi. And we are taking your feedback on all the topics that we are discussing this morning. Our Twitter and Facebook handles are Spice FM KE. Our telephone number 0719 012 600.
Intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Okoh, Njeri Thorne, CT Muga. And as we introduce the next topic, there is what was said by the Kiambu woman representative, and her name is Gathoni Wamushoba.
Sometimes it's good to balance our Christianity with our culture. We need to know whether we are doing the right thing. We need to sit down in our planning board and really have this as a public discussion. Because the more we keep quiet, the worse it becomes. Right now here, we have so many young men who have come here, and they are talking about their mothers. They are not talking about their fathers. And some of them, by the way, the problems they are in right now is because of lack of parenthood. We need to be very honest. Hawa watoto ambao ni wa single mother, mababa zao wako wapi? And why do we want to pretend that this is not a problem? So for me, I'm saying, in as much as we are talking about our church and our culture, we need to go back to the drawing board and discuss this issue and come up with a solution. Now, Wakikuyu, tuwe honest to ourselves. Tuwe honest to ourselves. When we had our polygamous fathers and our forefathers, what wrong did they do? What crime did they commit? And why did we term it as a crime now? If there was no crime they committed, and we were born out of those families, and we excelled, why not go there? If that is where we are going to get the solution. We are so pretentious today, and our pretentious lifestyle is what is costing us these problems we have today. So if polygamous is what is going to sort us out, let's go there. Kwani wale wabao wameshikilia mabibi watano 10 wamekufa.
She puts it well, doesn't she? She sort of goes into the genesis
It's
of it.
like it's something she actually believes. I mean,
she does, an honestly held belief. She's passionate about it.
And she's raised it.
Before.
Before. And she says, look, we need to be honest about it, and we need to bring out the conversation.
And of course, she's talking about the notion of having more than one wife, which is what polygamy is. And at the same time, simultaneously, not sort of having a wife, divorcing, having a wife, like they would in the West. Because I've had people say to me, well, the West is also polygamous. All they do is, the only difference is
it's called serial monogamy.
Exactly. Yeah. So the idea of polygamy, my take is maybe we need to start encouraging this and drop the stigma and running programs to drop the stigma, because it is happening. It's just not being embraced by society. So you have mpango ya kando, and it's still slightly stigmatized. And she makes a very good case for it, because there's a lot of single mothers out there, and she feels the child needs a father figure, and that males should, or men should, take this on as a responsibility and marry more wives so as to stop this problem. So she talks about it being illegal or not illegal. I want to clarify that it is not illegal in Kenya.
So is it legal?
It's very legal.
You lawyers.
It's very legal. It wasn't
lawyers, you've got to be very careful. So it's not illegal. Is it legal?
No, it is legal. Yeah,
right.
it is legal. She talks. I think she thinks it's illegal, because she says whether it's illegal or not. But no, it's very legal under the marriage bill. In fact, they had attempted to pass this bill back in 1981, but it was put down because they did not want the woman to have the right to give permission, the first wife, to give permission to the man to take on a second wife. So they managed to shut it down. And then it came back to Parliament again in 2009 and eventually in 2014. And they still, the men managed to remove the clause that gave the women the right.
Consent.
Yes, they managed to come together, cross parties, by the way, and remove the text that would give women the right to veto any such action. So a woman does not have any say as to whether the man takes on another wife or not. And I guess
maybe she does have a say.
Well, the consequence to this is, would she have grounds for divorce? No. Not from a legal perspective, so to speak. That would be the consequence. But what's important is she also brings up in that little clip that we heard, she talks about balancing religion and culture. And a lot of us are Christian or Muslim. I know in Islam it's advocated for. You can have up to 5 wives.
4.
Oh, sorry, 4. Gosh, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Yes. You can have up to 4 wives. But under Christianity, I know initially God was okay with you having 2 wives, and he kind of changed his mind somewhere. No, seriously, because in Genesis, in Genesis, they talk about Lamech took 2 wives for himself. Genesis 4:19. But of course, when Jesus came about, he then reinstituted God's original standard of polygamy, which was one. So God starts off with Adam and Eve. So it starts off with non-polygamous.
Man and woman.
And then he sort of shifts slightly and talks about, Lamech taking on 2 wives. There's reference to that, the citation from the Bible, so it was okay. And then God authorized Jesus Christ to reinstitute his original standard on polygamy. For this reason, man shall become one. He leaves his wife. I think it's John chapter something. But so from a religious context, it's now not allowed from a Christian perspective.
Yeah.
So how do we reconcile that as a predominantly Christian country, or as Christians, but with the cultural disposition for having more than one wife? It's heritage. And also now it seems like a social need. We're talking about men not having father figures, growing up and talking about their mothers, but not having father figures. And is it crucial to have a father figure, especially with the transition now that women are able to earn? Because before you needed this male figure or within a family because women weren't earning, and mainly because also jobs then required physical strength, which they don't now. That's shifted a bit. So this financial provision from a man is not a necessity, or it's not what it used to be. So do we even need husbands? Those are questions we... No, it's true. And especially, Kenyan men are provisioned for, they're conditioned rather for financial provision. If they can't do that, they lose their marbles. And there's been direct correlation with domestic violence and the woman empowering herself financially. So as she becomes more financially independent, there's been an increase in domestic violence. So there's no question about the fact that men cannot cope with anything other than financial provision. Spiritual provision. But that's a discussion for another day. But back to polygamy, there's a social need. We've said it's culturally there, and we see it coming about in terms of mpango wa kando. Should we embrace this idea of polygamy? Should we destigmatize it, especially amongst the young? When I say the young, I speak of myself in this bracket, because for our forefathers, it was the norm. It was normalized before it was interfered with. Yeah, let's talk about it.
Njeri Thorne says we should embrace polygamy. We should have this conversation as a society, and we'd love to also hear what you think. Spice FM KE on Twitter, Spice FM KE on Facebook, and also you can call in 0719 012 600. Ndu, you were looking at Njeri, you're giving her the side eye. But also looking back at also the other culture, what we have in Kenya is what you have in Nigeria as well.
Well, previously the situation was, looking at the age of our forefathers, my grandfather was polygamous. My grandfather had 4 wives. And the result of that was my mother then it came down to it. But if I look at polygamy for what it was not necessarily that a man was greedy and wanted to have all these women around him. It was more the other way. It showed that this man was able to provide certain needs, and that he was able to take, certain women under his wing and then take care of them. However, I think that as it has transcended time, it has been taken to be something else. And I think that a lot of men have not looked at it as, I'm taking on another woman on the side to be able to provide for her. It just means having your cake and eating it as well, whereby you have another woman in the relationship that you can, have a physical relationship with. And I think when we look at polygamy, if we look at it as a reason for provision for other women, then maybe we look at it as then it's not a relationship anymore, but it then now becomes a tool that will be used to meet certain needs.
Transactional.
Before you come in, CT, with your views, let's hear what our listeners and viewers have got to say. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, good morning. How are you? Oh,
hello.
Good morning. How?
Good morning.
Yes, what's your name, sir, and where are you calling from?
My name is Joseph.
Yes.
I'm calling you from Nairobi.
Yes, Joseph, what do you think? What are your views on polygamy?
Okay, Eric, I might have a different opinion about polygamy.
Yes.
But I believe it has come a time when we should accept that it exists, because people are practicing it, just that they're not talking about it. Back in the days, I remember in our days, maybe not my days, my grandfather's days, they used to talk about it. It was widely open to everybody, and nobody could see it as something, not norm in the society. Right now, people have got, let me just call them, as they call it, side chicks or whatever, which that is polygamy. It's just not talked about it. But when when people think about it, now it's something that is against, the norm. Now, that is not good. It's evil. Your wife starts to be whatever it is. But I'm sure it was something accepted, even if you didn't talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, this is Spice FM. You're in the Situation Room. What's your name and where are you calling us from?
My name is Steven.
Yes, Steven.
Or you can call me Mweshimiwa Stevo Marga out of Parkland.
Where? Mweshimiwa Stevo from Parkland. All right. What are your views on this?
My views, I can agree with the Njeri.
Yes.
What she says there, that in Kenya we don't care about the method we used to make it in life. So I can agree because unaona unaweza pata mtu anafanya vitu zake bora tu ameonekana anaona tu basi already I made it. Unaona?
Yeah, so this is about our Kenyan dream.
Sorry?
So you're making a comment about the Kenyan dream.
Oh no.
All right, I think Mheshimiwa got a bit time barred in terms of what he was referring to. So here we are. Njeri is saying that it's about time that Kenyans started having a conversation on polygamy. In fact, she's saying Kenyans should embrace polygamy. C.T. Muga.
No, please
go ahead,
okay,
ladies.
I think if we're going to apply biblical perspectives to look at Abraham, for example, which is one of the most famous cases in the Bible of a man who was married to more than one wife. He had Sarah, who was his wife, for a very long time, and they did not have any children. They could not have children. Sarah had her first child when she was 90. At that point is when it was before that is when it was suggested that he take on Hagar, who now gave him Ishmael, who now turned out to be the father of etc. 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 I can also liken it to other cases. I talked about my grandfather who was polygamous, and many reasons can reverberate through society where we look at the reasons why men took on second wives or third wives or fourth wives, and in many cases it was because, number one, the wife that they had only had one child or was not able to bear children. They then took on the second wife, who then maybe would only bear female children. They would then take on the third wife, then maybe who would be able to bear them male children as well. That was one aspect of it. Polygamy thrived because of the fact that women were not able to bear children. All right. At the same time, we also looked at a situation whereby children worked together with their parents. Men took on 1, 2, 3 wives because then there was the childbearing aspect of things, and these children would eventually grow whereby they would now help their children, especially in farming. They would help their children, they would help their parents agriculturally. So we looked at two different situations where it was for childbearing purposes and where these children now were able to help their parents in the different businesses, primarily agriculture, in which they engaged in. Now, those reasons do not replicate themselves today where we stand. I don't see situations where men are marrying more than or would marry more than one wife in order to have children that would help them in their businesses or to promote their legacy. I see situations, yes, where maybe one wife has given him 4 girls and then now he wants a boy and then goes ahead and marries a second wife. But the economic responsibility of having more than one wife in our times today is actually quite high. And I don't see many men wanting to take on that responsibility. If we look at the issues why we have so many single mothers in our society right now, that it would seem the converse to me, that men don't want to be in those relationships or don't want to be in those social agreements per se, where they have to take care of people. So I see a lot of men running away from that polygamous setting, running away from that kind of relationship where you have to take on this responsibility. So I think we cannot say the reasons why, we cannot extrapolate and say the reasons why it happened in earlier times are the reasons why it would happen today. Polygamy had its reasons previously. There were reasons why men took more than one wife, and it also showed signs of wealth, or it showed signs of responsibility. In today's day and age, I don't think we can actually say that same thing exists.
Actually, it does. It actually does. To understand it, if one comes from a community where they're already populous, this may not seem to be an issue. But if you come from a community where your numbers are distinctly few, it is an issue. Right now, we have a debate around the census. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the hullabaloo around it has to do with the numbers. Who is more than the other? Because this plays out in our election. Now, the dynamics you speak of, you say, they do play out in this modern times, just that the manner in which they're presented is different. You talked about the aspect of children and their contribution to labor, yes, but the numbers also contributed to security. When what we now consider to be a modern society came into being, what now played out was communities who were large in number but had the formal Western education and so could take over the position of the colonialists. Those are the people who held sway. In this country, 2 communities dominated it at independence, the Luos and the Kikuyus. Dominated it. Now, such domination is very difficult to get rid of. If you look at some of the issues we even have on this continent, you'll find it boils down to that. And then when you throw in resources, the issue now really comes muddled up. Numbers are always an issue. Why are the Chinese prosperous? Numbers. Why are the Chinese a world power? Numbers. Numbers cannot be downplayed. And if you look at these communities, they didn't get to those numbers by beginning with some birth control measures of one person, one child. That came later when the numbers now became a bit difficult to manage. Why is India a powerhouse? Numbers. So you cannot downplay the importance of numbers. However, if you look at the issue of polygamy as we currently want to look at it, it's against the backdrop of everything I'm trying to say. You're saying we're already populous. Resources are already strained. Why do we need more numbers? Now, people who conduct research in such matters, and anthropologists will tell you, you are not looking at this thing from the right angle. The issue here is people will procreate. It's like a ticking pre-programmed issue in the mind and in the system of human beings to procreate.
They'll do it anyway. They'll do it anyway.
They are going to do it. Now, marriage and hence polygamy.
Those are social constructs.
Yes, it just formalizes it, but they are going to do it anyway.
Do what?
Procreate.
Just checking.
Play marbles.
I've got a call on the line. Hello. Hello, Kirwa. I think.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. What's your comment on this issue of polygamy?
But this concern the polygamy.
Yes.
I think they should be practiced simply because we have many ladies around there. So you consider that the government, even our president, make amendment and consult that we have a ratio of 1:7. People must maybe they can marry more than one wife simply because the women are many in the world, and we men we are just we are still so much.
So 1:7. You're saying we have a ratio of 1:7 what?
Yeah, 1:7. One man, 7 wives.
Where?
No, it had been amended in maybe in Africa, but here in Kenya, our president has said that we should have 1 to 4. One man, four wives.
4 wives.
Okay.
Good Lord.
Yeah, even if we go to religious, we can see that King Solomon married many wives, 3,500. But even it touches, people used to say this word that King Solomon used to touch 3,500 breasts, but gives respect to each lady. But now we men of Africa, we don't give respect.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So reinforcing.
I think what he's doing is he's got an issue with numbers, right? I don't know where he got the 1:7 or 1:4.
But he's reinforcing this notion. He's
yes.
even suggesting that maybe it should be a directive from the presidency, which was the case in Swaziland. I don't know if you remember that, where he's made it mandatory for you to marry more than one wife. I'm sure based on the very reasons you were talking about. It's not pure absurdity. Remember, it was sort of common practice previously, and it was demonized by the West when they came in. It was now it's stigmatized, and maybe I'm not saying this is what everybody has to do, and the president must pass and do what must pass a directive and do what the president or the king in Swaziland did. But what I'm saying is, can we destigmatize it and normalize it yet again? Because I believe it was simply demonized. And interestingly enough, with the census coming up, one of the warnings has been no falsehoods. So it will be very interesting. This will be some of the awkward questions coming up. Do you have another family? Or I don't know how they're going to frame it. But if we didn't stigmatize it, it would be very easy to talk about, isn't it? But I know it's one of the things that's been flagged as a potential falsehood listing when it comes to the census. Speaking about your mpango wa kando.
Actually, the question of children will be asked to the women. How many living children?
Men won't be asked that question?
From what I've seen in the questions, yes, the man will be, who's the head of this house? How many?
Head of the house meaning what?
we're
The
finding,
person
yeah.
who is responsible for the finances and providing them, or
Well, maybe that's just internal democracy. You decide, you and your spouse, who's the head. So who's the head of the house?
Who's the head of your house, Eric?
I am the head of the house.
Okay.
According to our internal democracy.
Why aren't you asking me?
I still seem to take issue, or rather, I have a question. I'm not making, a particular. I want to understand why. Okay, what are we saying now? That it must be legalized because it's going on anyway.
It is legal.
Okay,
destigmatized. Let us embrace it, where you're not ashamed to be the second wife, for instance. Where as a man you can publicly declare you have two wives, not just in front of other men. You can introduce them.
So why is there the stigma? Usually, stigma is attached to things that people now.
I just said it was the colonials were very deliberate about demonizing a lot of our practices, including spiritual practices, in order to give us Christianity. So this is one of the practices that they were able to demonize.
So are we saying that people who now stigmatize, or those who are stigmatized, we don't even understand the reason why this thing that people are talking about all the time, we don't even understand why it has these terrible connotations to it? We just kind of go with the flow.
No, we don't, but we're starting to feel the consequences, as we heard in the clip earlier from
Donnie.
Yes, exactly. We're starting to feel the consequences in children growing up fatherless. What are the consequences of that? In women sort of not being married. She talked about the consequences, so we're starting to feel that.
Let's flip the coin again, Njeri.
Mm-hmm.
What among the reasons why men, and I'm sure, City, you may come in and tell me of instances you've heard of, why men do not introduce the mpango wa kando, even if you intend really, you have established a relationship with somebody else, she's your mpango wa kando, but as far as all you're concerned, this is your family. But you will not introduce this family to your first family because of what the number one wife, is likely to do. She's just likely to go and cause, like we know, more fury than in hell.
And with reason.
And with reason. And with
because
whatever
she's
reason.
the first one who was selected?
Not
or
necessarily.
What?
It's to protect the wealth.
It is, yes, that is one reason. But in many cases, you'll find when someone has a mpango wa kando, the first family is neglected. Or some sort of neglect is exhibited. The polygamy you speak of over time gone by, this didn't happen because to begin with, everybody lived within that same compound.
Yes, everybody had their own home, house.
Yes.
Everybody, because
within the home.
Entire region was
Yes.
region per se was a home. So each wife had her own house.
Yes.
There was visitation rights that were applied
Yes.
to each woman.
Children played together.
Children played
They
together. The meals were done together. The visitation by husband was was dedicated to specific days, and she had her time where she would visit the Okoh of the house. So I mean, right. So these things, it was scheduled, and I understand it worked very well.
We've got
So why is
something
it
in the
that
paper actually? Luya Prophet. This is again. Sorry, as I say, I
Yeah,
happen to have the Nairobian.
Yes.
The 79-year-old
in
who has
front of
30,
me. Yes, Luya Prophet, in inverted
with
commas,
39 wives.
reveals how he lives happily with 39 wives. Self-proclaimed prophet Nabil Yohanatano says polygamists must do 3 things if they want their wives to be loyal and submissive and their homes squabble-free, he says.
Right.
The 79-year-old bushy-chinned man who hails from Nandolia village in Bungoma town has married 39 wives, no less than 39. 3 are deceased. He has 107 children and over 250 grandchildren. And he says the way to a woman's heart is through provision of food, spending time with her, and showering her with love all the time, even if her character is awful. The man who claims to be John the Baptist, it gets a bit more upset, said he has managed to live with his wives peacefully because he ensures that each house is supplied with plenty of food on a weekly basis. If a man doesn't provide food, he warns the wives will start quarreling and fighting. He advised men that whenever they want to discuss anything of importance with their wives, they must first ensure the women and children have eaten to their fill. But the prophet warned rich men who provide everything and top it all by giving money, yet they never spend time with their families. He says that will push women to cheat on them.
Those are epitaphs of wisdom.
Those are pearls of wisdom there. I mean.
Well, so you see, he's still. It's interesting because Prophet Luya here still has an issue with. He still has an issue with the women cheating. Do you see what I'm saying?
I want to
He
come
still
to
has
that
an issue
point.
with them
Polyandry.
cheating. Plus, he's spoken about the fact he's talked about their happiness based on distribution of resources.
But no, he talks about time. I like that.
Yes,
but how are you giving 39 women time? I mean, I will see you once every other month.
Right, because
every 45 days.
You're not going to get more than a day every month. But then he's also spoken about the fact
sometimes
that
you could go for a full month.
And his end game here is for them to be loyal,
submissive,
tick, and so that he can be happy. So he's
It is the patriarchy.
But that's what he said. He's done all these things. He's married all these women. He's spent time with them once a month, give or take. Okay, and so that in return, the satisfaction is his.
But he says the women are happy as well.
Yeah, but why has he made them happy? He's made them happy so that he can be happy.
So it's mutually, it's a symbiotic relationship.
You have a problem with this, Ndu.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's this again. It's the one. It's him.
It's the patriarchy set up to make the man happy.
It's the man being happy, and however he's going to go about and do that, then okay, And then he will have a problem if you see he's also done all these things to subvert her from looking towards another man. Should God forbid this woman one woman looks in the direction of another man to fulfill these needs, he will have a problem with it.
Even he is not looking in the direction of other women. He's married to 39.
Which leads to my
How
next
did he get to
question.
39?
How did he get to 39?
He's looking everywhere.
He's looking everywhere for them.
Or did he marry 39 at a go?
He's not cheating.
But the
He's
question I
basically
have, if we flip the coin,
formalized his cheating.
So we accept that polygamy can exist. This man has 39 wives, so long as he keeps everybody happy. If we flip the coin, polyandry.
People will have heart attacks.
For a woman to have more than one husband. What is wrong with that?
Stirring the hornet's nest. That's what Njeri is actually trying to do now. So she's brought us up into polygamy. She wants to flip the coin into polyandry. This is the Situation Room right here in Spice FM 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, and 97.6 in Malindi. We are also receiving all your feedback this morning. Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE on Twitter, and 0719-012-600. That's our telephone number. We'd love to know what you think. Now we've moved from polygamy, but we still have the conversation. And also let's introduce the other angle of polyandry. That's one woman having more than one husband, isn't it? That's what it means, right?
That's what it means.
All right.
At the same time.
At the same time, not serial.
So a woman having mpango akando or 2 or 39.
No, a
and
woman
she has
having
money and can provide for all of them.
Well, not necessarily.
A woman having more than one husband. It's 9 o'clock. Good morning.